Ben and Me, Chapter 13, The Battle of Versailles. July 4th arrived and found my preparations complete. Red Jefferson came to report late in the morning. His disheveled fur and red-rimmed eyes indicated sleepless nights of effort, but he was, as always, brimful of energy and enthusiasm. "All is in readiness, Amos," he said. "The sewers are in a turmoil. Revolution and liberty fill the air. Vengeance is on every tongue. I can scarce restrain their ardor." "See that you do," I said. "One false move would ruin everything. Remember now, the third south window of the throne room. Here's your map of the palace grounds. The night will be warm and all windows open. The signal is up and at 'em, and not a move or a sound before that signal. I'm depending on you." Red glanced grimly at the cudgel with which he had armed himself. "I had a winter at Valley Forge under von Steuben," he said. "I know something of discipline. Trust me, Amos. Liberty and justice forever!" He was off again, and I thanked the Providence that had sent me this dynamic lieutenant. In the afternoon, I visited Sophia for last-minute instructions. Although trembling slightly with excitement, she retained the poise of the true aristocrat. "The Russians and Swedes will report to you," I told her. "They are the most dependable. I myself shall take charge of the Passé peasants who require a firm hand. How about the headdress?" "A splendid one for our purpose, Monsieur Amos," she said. "Would you care to see it?" Peering through a curtain, we could see 3 headdresses and 2 maids arranging Madame Brillion's headdress for the ball. I had seen many elaborate hair arrangements at the court, but this one far exceeded anything I had ever beheld. The powdered curls, rising to a height of 4 feet above her head, were arranged to represent the waves of the ocean. Surmounting these was a full-rigged ship with an American flag at the masthead. Long red, white, and blue ribbons inscribed "Liberty and Justice" flew from the bowsprit. Just below the ship was a colored wax medallion of Ben, upheld by pink cupids and decorated with some silly sentiment. "Perfect," I said. "The ship will hold all the Swedes. They're great sailors and will feel at home there. The Russians you will have to take inside, unfortunately. They are a bit uncouth." "This is not a moment to worry about daintiness," she replied calmly. "You are splendid, madam," I exclaimed. "Courage now, and trust in Amos. Remember the signal. Up and at 'em. Not a sound or a movement before that. Fear not. All will be well." "Bless you, monsieur," she said bravely. "Liberté and justice." The peasant mice reported to me early in the evening. They were a rather motley crew, armed with scythes, clubs, and other crude weapons. I had drilled them as well as possible, but had no great confidence in their steadiness. I did try to impress on them the need for absolute obedience and silence. Ben, of course, was in a twitter of excitement over his new clothes. This was fortunate, for I was able to stow all my awkward band aboard him without attracting his attention. As a matter of fact, in his state of excitement, a swarm of bees could have traveled in his cap, and he never would have noticed. 12 of us occupied the fur cap, I being stationed at the peephole in front. The rest I secreted in various pockets. One clever little fellow clung to Ben's watch fob, where he gave the appearance of being a charm or ornament of some sort. Once we were safely started for the ball, I gave a sigh of relief. Whew! All seemed to be going well. True, there was no word from the ship-rats of John Paul Jones, but I had done all I could. We must do our best without them. The Palace of Versailles was a scene of the greatest gaiety. Lights were everywhere. Fireworks filled the sky. Orchestras played. The great halls were crowded with guests, all come to honor the United States and Ben. The lights, the opulent costumes, the sounds and splendor of the court brought a great chattering from my country-bred cohort, which I sternly suppressed. We paused briefly at the entrance to the throne room while a path was cleared for Ben, and I had a moment to glance around. Among the throng, I spied Madame Brillian. From the slight quavering of her towering headdress, I knew that Sophia's contingent was present. A glimpse of Red's flaming head on the third south windowsill reminded me that he and his mob were faithful. Ben, of course, was the center of all attention. Every eye was upon him, and we advanced slowly up the length of the great hall. As we approached the magnificent throne where the king and queen sat, I nudged the leaders of my peasants. "Ready," I muttered. I could feel Ben trembling with excitement as he halted to make his bow. At that tense moment, I leaned from the peephole and shouted in my loudest tones the agreed signal, "Up Ben Adam!" Ben fairly dripped mice. My peasant regiment swarmed from his coat, his hat, his waistcoat, forming in company front at his feet. As I had trained them, they charged toward the queen's throne. A scene of the wildest confusion followed. The queen and 27 of her courtiers promptly fainted. The king, pale and trembling, rose from his throne and rushed toward the window, only to be met by Red and his shrieking rabble of slum mice and sewer rats. Thereupon, the king also fainted and was rather badly trampled by the fleeing ladies of the court. Oh my. Liberty forever. The white mice of the palace guard, although taken by surprise, soon rallied, driving back the first charge of my undisciplined peasants. But now the Swedes and Russians joined the fray, and the battle raged fiercely about the ankles of the queen. Alas, for Red's faith in the proletariat, at the first sight of the lavish refreshments spread out in the adjoining rooms, his fickle revolutionists dropped their weapons and rushed for the food. Screaming with rage and disappointment, Red dashed into the fray. His flashing cudgel and flaming fur were always in the thickest of the fight. One by one, the peasants of Passy deserted and joined in demolishing the refreshments. The Swedes and Russians, led by the intrepid Red, battled doggedly, but the tide was turning against them. From every corridor of the palace came swarms of white mice to reinforce the ranks of the enemy. Inch by inch, we were being forced from our goal, the cell where Sophia's children lay. Amid the confusion of the conflict, I was suddenly aware of a clear, thin piping sound. Could it be? Yes, surely it was. Through the hot summer air came the shrill scream of a fife, and the tune was Yankee Doodle. Through the window came piling the sailor rats of John Paul Jones, 50 fighting Yankees. Lafayette, we are here! Flashing cutlasses and flailing handspikes drove through the throng. The white mice fled like snowflakes before a wind. In no time, the cage was captured, the door demolished, and Sophia's children brought forth free mice. A grizzled old bosun pulled his forelock. "Captain Jones compliments," he said. "Any further orders?" Red appeared, dripping sweat and blood, eyes flashing. "Orders," he shouted. "Orders? Yes, by heaven!" He pointed to the refreshment room. "That rabble, that scum, clear them out!" "Aye, aye, sir," said the bosun. The cutlass flashed, and the deserters fled, shrieking before them. "It's yours, boys," said Red. "Help yourselves." And then to me, "I'm done, Amos," and slumped to the floor. Madame Brilliant had fainted out of politeness to the queen. We rescued Sophia from the wreckage of the headdress, and it did my heart good to see her joyous reunion with the 7 children. Poor Ben, looking perfectly dazed, he stood alone in the center of a large empty space. Everyone had crowded away from him as though he were infected with the plague. The king, by now recovered, was conferring with a group of his generals, all of whom were darting angry glances at Ben. I began to fear for his safety. With Sophia's assistance, I managed to get the half-conscious Red into the fur cap. Then Sophia and her happy brood climbed aboard. Ben, I suggested, don't you think we had best be getting home? You seem to have lost a great deal of your popularity. We left by a rear door, still shunned by all present. As we passed the refreshment room, Sophia and the children waved happily to their rescuers, who were boisterously celebrating the victory. The grizzled boatswain led them in 3 hearty cheers. Hip, hip, hooray! Hip, hip, hooray! Hip, hip, hooray! And we left the palace with the roaring chorus of a Yankee ship and a Yankee skipper ringing in our ears. The French, Ben, I said, are a fickle people. One moment you're a hero, and the next you're an outcast. When do we sail for home? He seemed still in a daze. I don't know, Amos, he said uncertainly. Whenever you say, I guess. And we'll read chapter 14 next time. Until then, as Tigger says, ta-ta for now. Thanks so much for listening. Love you guys. Bye-bye.